What is going on, everybody? I hope you had a good holiday season so far. We're finally in the new year, and a lot of people have things they want to do. Now, the first thing I wanted to do was thank everybody for subscribing and supporting this channel. I mainly do these types of videos because I just enjoy making videos. That means if I've worked an 18-hour day, I still make videos. I do it to relieve some stress from my everyday life and just life in general. So I just want to thank you guys for making that transition and making videos a lot more fun than I thought it would be. But yeah, there are so many games we could play on the ROG Ally, from FPSs, strategy games like Baldur's Gate 3, to fighting games like Street Fighter 6. But today I wanted to talk about a type of video game genre that a lot of people tend to ignore and neglect. Today I'm going to list off my personal 10 best racing games on the ROG Ally, because for the most part, there are some days where all I play on my ROG Ally are racing games, because with that 1080p screen, VRR, and sheer power, some might say the ROG Ally is more suited for racing games than the Steam Deck is. Because with games like Need for Speed Heat, I've had a ton of issues on the Steam Deck with open world racers like that. But there are older titles that will work very well on either system, from the Steam Deck to the Lenovo Legion Go to, of course, the ROG Ally. But today we're going to talk about the 10 best racing games specifically for the ROG Ally, and starting with number 10, this is a game that a lot of people saw on the Nintendo Switch, and it was the first racing game that actually looked like a next generation racing game on the Nintendo Switch. But on the ROG Ally, it looks just as good, if not a whole lot better, and runs very well. And that game is Grid Autosport. Now, I'm not one for motorsport games, but Grid Autosport deserves to be on this list, mainly because I put the most hours in this particular motorsport game. Not even Forza Motorsport is in this top 10 list. And of course it's not. It was very buggy for the PC, but Grid Autosport is a perfect racing game in my opinion. Grid 1 and 2 was superb, but Grid Motorsport is by far one of the best motorsport games, period. And number 9 is Fuel. This is a racing game that has no limits. And for the most part, Fuel is truly endless. I mean, I don't see a person playing this actually having enough time to go through the entire map. This game is so ridiculously huge. It is actually one of the biggest maps in any video game. So yeah, Fuel deserves the place in number 9 at the very least. But I also have a soft spot for open world racing games. So I'm just consistently playing Fuel on the ROG Ally if I have a lot of time to kill, but I want to venture through a big part of a racing game. And Fuel is the perfect open world racing game for my specific tastes with certain racing titles. And if you haven't played Fuel already, I've mentioned it in a previous video, and I highly recommend this racing title. And the next racing game on the list is, of course, one of the biggest franchise in any racing title, and that is Need for Speed, specifically Need for Speed Unbound. And in this Need for Speed game, it actually takes place in Chicago. I think that's the perfect location for street races, and I just love the variety in Unbound. This is by far the most cars I've ever seen in any Need for Speed game, so it hopefully snatches 8th place without effort. And just like other open world Need for Speed titles, Unbound has highly customizable cars and the same tricked out style that the Need for Speed series has seen for decades. If you haven't checked out Need for Speed Unbound by now, then you're probably not into racing games as much as you thought. But if you haven't gotten the chance, Need for Speed Unbound plays perfectly on the ROG Ally and other handheld PCs like the Steam Deck and Lenovo Legion Go. So if you haven't checked it out and you have one of those handhelds, especially an ROG Ally, Need for Speed Unbound is incredible on it. Now, the next racing game is one of my favorite arcade style Need for Speed titles, and that is Hot Pursuit. It's a remake of the original Hot Pursuit that came out a few decades ago, which would explain the arcade style campaign that Hot Pursuit adopts. But I thought I would deviate from that open world racing genre and go to Hot Pursuit instead of Rivals. Rivals is a great Need for Speed title, but it's not as good as the other ones on the list. And Hot Pursuit adds something different to the recent Need for Speed games that always tapped into that open world genre. And that makes Need for Speed Hot Pursuit one of my favorite games to just jump into and then leave it be if I have something to do. It makes for a perfect handheld racing game with its arcade campaign. And I personally think it's a lot more accessible than those other open world style racing titles that I have on this list, but you have to give credit where credit is due. And so that's why Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is number 7. And number 6, you guessed it, it's Need for Speed Heat. Yes, there are a ton of Need for Speed games, especially on this list, but just bear with me. Need for Speed Heat just has a lot more style than Unbound and Hot Pursuit put together. This game is just special. It feels more akin to a Forza Horizon game. With its pink, Fast and Furious aesthetic to the world, it literally feels like you're playing a Fast and Furious game, or like the best Fast and Furious game ever made. I know there was one that came out recently, and that one is just no good. But Need for Speed Heat is just as the title calls it, absolute heat. It is an amalgamation of the style that the series has shown over the course of several decades. It feels like the final Need for Speed game even after Unbound came out. But yes, I can't get enough of Need for Speed Heat. I absolutely love the storyline, the car availability, the style, the graphics, and the controls are among the best in the series. And for this one, if you actually haven't played Need for Speed Heat by now, then I'm marking it off as you don't like racing games. And Need for Speed Heat plays so much better on the ROG Ally than it did on the Steam Deck for me personally. There isn't as much stuttering, there's 0 crashes, and the game plays very smooth at 40 FPS. Need for Speed Heat is one of my favorite racing games to play on the ROG Ally. And number 5 is something I never thought I would see coming. Initially, I didn't like Hot Wheels Unleashed, but after playing it for a couple years and giving it a few chances here and there, Hot Wheels Unleashed is pretty great. It plays at a perfect 60 FPS at 1080p on the ROG Ally. It looks phenomenal on this device. I wholeheartedly recommend playing it exclusively on the ROG Ally for the screen size, resolution, and FPS. And the best part about playing Hot Wheels Unleashed on the ROG Ally is you can actually hit 120 FPS when you boost it up to turbo mode, of course. And just having all of those options from high resolution to even higher FPS, that makes a game like Hot Wheels Unleashed 1 an absolute blast to play on this beautiful handheld. And naturally, number 4 has got to be Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. I am in love with this game. It fixes everything that part 1 should have added from the beginning, like an actual reasonable difficulty, and the car variations have been fixed. The stages are even more accessible to play. Basically, the game is a little easier and just more reasonable than the first Hot Wheels Unleashed. And that pretty much makes Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 one of the best racing games I've played in recent memory. It is just more unique, it plays exceptionally well on the ROG Ally, and it looks unbelievable. As a kid, I always used to play with Hot Wheels toys, and even as an adult, I can't stop but look at those crazy-ass Hot Wheels tracks that you can fully customize and do crazy tricks with any car that you buy. The amount of customization and Hot Wheels 1 and 2 especially is just exciting to think about. I can't wait to get back into Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 on the go so I can finally finish it. But as of right now, it didn't need to try very hard to be one of my favorite racing games for the ROG Ally. And finally, when I list number 3, you're going to be very confused. But if you were there during the time of Need for Speed Most Wanted's awakening, and that is the Need for Speed Most Wanted remake, you'll know exactly why it has to be number 3. Need for Speed Most Wanted is a special title. It was one of my favorite games on the PS Vita. I've added it to multiple lists in my channel's history, and playing it on the ROG Ally is absolutely perfect. Now, of course, you need to adjust the trigger sensitivity a little more, but with those awesome updates that Asus released in the past 6 months alone, they fixed the trigger sensitivity and just every part of the ROG Ally's controls, which makes Need for Speed Most Wanted one of the best feeling racing games to play on the handheld. And I simply can't get enough of Need for Speed Most Wanted. For the PS Vita, the controls were a little sluggish, but with 60 FPS at 1080p on the ROG Ally, this game is remarkable to play even now. This was originally a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 game, and it's still blowing me away. It looks incredible. It has the best soundtrack of any Need for Speed game, and for the time, it had the best cars. So if you haven't played Need for Speed Most Wanted, you gotta check it out, especially if you have an ROG Ally. And number 2, I'm pretty sure most people that pay attention and follow my channel would have guessed by now because I haven't mentioned any of these Forza games on this list yet. But number 2 is Forza Horizon 5. And yes, part 5, not 4. Forza Horizon plays perfectly on the ROG Ally. And 5, you need a tiny bit more power because it is one of the latest Forza Horizon games. But I was able to play this game for around 3 to 4 hours at 1080p and mostly 40 to 45 FPS. Forza Horizon is one of the most impressive open world racing games I've ever played. Actually, it is the the most impressive open world racing game. Its car variety is mind-blowing. You can even get the Warthog from Halo and drive that around. You can paint it gold. I just love doing that in this game. It has the best cars known to man, and those preview tracks are killer, especially in Forza Horizon 5. But I'm mainly putting it at number 2 because it plays so damn well on the ROG Ally. It's almost like the ROG Ally was made for Forza Horizon. And this was a title that just kept crashing on the Steam Deck till the day I gave it away. I'm not sure what's going on there with Linux, Proton, and Microsoft games, but it seems like Microsoft games just don't like Proton because Forza Horizon plays so well on Windows. In fact, it plays perfect on any Windows handheld that I've tested. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Forza Horizon 5 already, what are you doing with your life? This is one of the best open world racing games. Heck, it's one of the best open world games. It's just so much fun to traverse through the tracks to the countryside and break through to those off-road tracks as well. Every single bit of this game is expertly and perfectly handcrafted for your gaming pleasure, especially on a Windows handheld like the ROG Ally. And before we get to number 1, I'm gonna have some honorable mentions. First of all of the Dirt Rally games on Steam are incredible. I absolutely love those. And to me personally, the WRC games on Steam look great. I can't get enough of those videos on YouTube where someone's drifting for like 2 hours straight. But for the most part, every single Dirt Rally game on Steam works so well on the ROG Ally, and I have a blast, especially with Dirt Rally 4. But moving on, last but definitely not least, number 1 has to be Forza Horizon 4. Forza Horizon 5 is the latest in the series, but I feel like all of the amazing ideas ended with Forza Horizon 4. It starts with an explosive intro, it has the best locations, the best cars from the get-go, and just a ton of variety, especially with its tracks. Forza Horizon 4 has the best moments in the series, in my opinion. Forza Horizon 3 is incredible, I can't deny that, but Forza Horizon 4, apart from the Lego DLC that it comes with, has no doubt some of the best content in the series. And this game actually certifiably plays perfect on the ROG Ally. It plays better than every other game on this list, even Need for Speed Most Wanted. I put the ROG Ally to the minimum power draw, and Forza Horizon 4 is still at 1080p played at 60 FPS, and that's all thanks to the optimization for this title. It has this adaptive quality setting that makes it barely noticeable when the quality goes down to get more FPS out of the game. But yeah, Forza Horizon 4, a perfect game to play in ROG Ally, especially if you're on a plane like I was just 2 days ago and you have nothing to do for like 4 hours. It looks incredible, plays incredible. It's just a perfect racing game for the ROG Ally, and I 1000% recommend it. But yeah, that's been the top 10 best racing games for the ROG Ally. And I hope you guys understand this isn't personal. Well, it is a personal list from me. But if you wanted another racing game to be on this list, then let me know in the comments below, because I want to know what other racing games I can play on the ROG Ally that play exceptionally well on the handheld. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a good one. Later.